안녕하세요. 네이버의 CFO 김남선입니다. 오늘은 가장 최근에 네이버의 가족이 되어주신 파시마크의 창업자이자 CEO 마니시 샨드라님을 소개해드리고자 합니다. Hi Manish, welcome back to Seoul.
Thank you, Namsan. Thanks for having me. I'm Manish Chandra, founder and CEO of Poshmark. I'm here with some of my team, and it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
그러면 포시마크에 대한 짧은 소개 영상을 잠깐 시청하신 후 머니시님과의 대담을 계속 이어가도록 하겠습니다. 감사합니다. 네, 대담은 영어로 진행하겠습니다. So Manish, I wanted to begin with your story. You were a computer science graduate of IIT, the India Institute of Technology, then went over to the US to pursue a graduate degree in computer science at University of Texas, Austin, after which you earned an MBA from UC Berkeley. Your first job in the US was as a software engineer at Intel. It was back in the late 80s, early 90s, when Intel was one of the most valuable companies in the world. A few jobs and a business degree later, you went from enterprise software to founding your first company, Caboodle, which was actually the first social shopping platform at the time. After successfully selling Caboodle, you then founded Poshmark, and for the past 12 years have built what has now become the largest second-hand fashion marketplace in the world. Can you share with us where Poshmark came from, some of the inspirations you have spoken about from back in your days in India, and your appreciation of community, and how you were able to make all of that come to life in Silicon Valley?
Thanks, Namsan. So I grew up in India, and when I was growing up, I used to spend a lot of my summers with my grandfather. And my grandfather had a pharmacist shop in the middle of Chandni Chowk, which is an old school market in India. And I would hang out on the shop with him all day, and I would see people negotiating, talking to each other, and the entire market was driven by community, and people knew each other by first name. As I grew up and I was growing through technology, online shopping came of age, probably in the late 90s, early 2000s. And what I saw was that while shopping was great, it was really hard to sort of have the kind of intimate social attraction that you have. In Caboodle, we tried to create that social platform, but it was much more a media company, much more like Pinterest. And we saw a lot of people had the need to take what they have in their closet, take what they were trying to sell, and try to buy and sell. And then when I looked at my own closet, we had so many unopened shopping bags. And if you think across America, there's like over 100 million people with over $1 trillion worth of clothes sitting there. So in 2010, when iPhone 4 first just started to come out, you had very high quality pictures. That's when it all started to connect. And I had just met with Tracy's son, my co-founder at that time, and that sort of was the beginning of the journey of Poshmark.
What do you think sets Poshmark apart from the other C2C marketplaces? And how do you think Americans perceive Poshmark to be special?
I think for us, the focus has been two really things that have set us apart through our journey over the last 12 years. First is simplicity. If you look at Poshmark, our focus has been to make the life of everyone simple. Our sellers simple, our shoppers simple, by taking care of a lot of things that are complex and creating just a very simple architecture. So for example, from day one we started, our sellers keeping 80%, we keep 20%, and that partnership has not changed in 12 years. We have a simple shipping label that our sellers use to ship everything, which across the country, as big as US is, it keeps the shipping very simple. But the second, and probably the more important thing that sets us apart, is this real focus on social and community. When people think of Poshmark in America, they think of a lively community where people care for each other. Our sellers are unique in that they spend a significant amount of their time promoting other sellers. I think if you think of a marketplace, where do you find people where they're spending a third of their time promoting other people? And that community focus has allowed us to not only create something that is very special and unique, it has also allowed us to create a competitive moat where so many people have come and tried to, take Poshmark's market share, and over time it has continued to grow as a market share with our core focus on community.
Thank you. I wanted to ask a personal question. Many of us here today from Naver are engineers, product managers. You began your career as a software engineer and later built your own product and also now run your own business. I'm sure that your background in Silicon Valley success, coming from that background, is something that many of us here at Naver today find to be inspiring. How do you think the skills required to be a good engineer, a good product manager, and a good business owner are different, or perhaps are they even similar?
I think of them as a lot of similarities. If you think you're, as a software engineer, you're taking inputs and from there you're creating a piece of software. Now, if you think when you're creating a piece of software, if I look across the room, a lot of time we spend when we are creating software in dealing and looking for exceptions. What could go wrong and how do you handle it? How do you make things simpler and faster? Well, when you're creating a business, you're obviously focused on making something easier and simpler for your customers, but you also spend a lot of time dealing and building for those exceptions that may come as your business is scaling. As a product manager, you're listening to your customer. You're deeply understanding their pain. You feel their pain. And that feeling of the pain allows you to create a product that works very well for your customer. That's the same thing in business. At the end, you're creating a product for your business that your customers are going to love and care for. What is sort of really key about all of these roles is that they require working with other people. And to create any good business, you have to create a team, you have to bring the team together, and you have to make the team work with each other. So in that sense, I think being a software engineer and product manager is great training to run your own business.
Now, your co-founders, Tracy, Gautam, and Chetan, and then John and Vanessa, all the rest of the team, a fantastic team we find at Poshmark. Now, I thought your partnership with Tracy especially to be quite interesting. She was actually a fashion merchandiser back in Manhattan when you were first thinking about the Poshmark idea. How important do you think it is to be able to work with people who come from completely different backgrounds, but perhaps bring to the table strengths that are completely different from your own?
Well, I think building a business is really all about building complementary strengths. And if you feel you can do everything, it's going to be a small business that you can create. But if you can partner with a lot of great people, you can create amazingly big things, like Naver has done here, partnering with a very large community and continue to create and innovate across decades and across countries now. For me, it was when I sort of started to think about what I wanted to do, I knew I wanted to do something at the intersection of fashion and technology. Technology was my background, and fashion I'd learned building Caboodle. And I wanted to partner this time with someone who really understood fashion at a deep level. And so I did what we call founder dating, which is try to meet different people who have different backgrounds. And through that process, Tracy and I were connected with our first investor, Mayfield. And what was special about Tracy was that even though she'd come from a deep fashion background, she had deep appreciation of technology. And for me, what she found was that even though I'd come from a technology background, I had deep appreciation of her fashion background. So this mutual appreciation and respect led to an instant connection. And that's how we started to start the journey. And Tracy's right here sitting in the audience. Right there, I see her. And I had, in my team, I had Gautam, Chetan, I had folks who had rich technology and product background, but finding someone who had deep fashion background who could teach me that was special. And that's how the team came together to start Poshmark.
Do you have any piece of advice for any of our especially younger engineers or product managers here at Naver?
Yeah, my advice is very simple. I think two things. One is when you're creating something, when you want to start a new business, a new idea, you have to be deeply passionate about it. Because in the beginning, everyone will tell you that you're wrong. It's not going to work. It's just too small. It's too stupid. Think about when you go back to 2010, trying to create something on a phone to buy and sell used clothes. I mean, people were like, are you nuts? First of all, you should create a website because, who's going to use phones for buying everything? Second is you should have something new because who's going to buy used clothes? And at that point, you have to go with your core belief. And for the long time, have the ability to be misunderstood, to not be loved by anybody. And in that cold road, you find your courage and strength and become who you want to be. But the second thing, which is equally important, is no matter how and what your idea is, think of how it can be really, really, really big. So I talk about the fact that, there are entrepreneurs who may see a cup of coffee and say, hey, I want to create a coffee cart. And Soul loves coffee, so coffee is a great analogy here. Somebody looks at a cup of coffee and opens a coffee shop. Some people look at a cup of coffee and create a couple of coffee shops. But there was somebody who looked at a cup of coffee and imagined a whole Starbucks in it. So think of what your Starbucks will be your idea as you create your idea. That would be my big advice to you.
Now, you and I, we first met in early 2022. You were already a successful, very successful Silicon Valley entrepreneur, had taken your own company public, which at one point had reached $7 billion in market capitalization. Now, I noticed a lot of similarities between the two organizations when we first met. So from a Naver perspective, our belief in the strength of community and our dedication to empowering the longer tail seller, merchant, and creator was something that I thought your organization also shared. Now, what led you to partner with Naver, a company that you probably had never heard of before when we first met?
I would say it started with you, Namsen. I have to say that, on January 4th, I still remember January 4th, 2022, is when Namsen had sent me the first email saying, hey, we'd love to chat with you, love to see if we could explore a partnership with you. And I thought, in terms of from that very first time, the level of deep respect you've shown for every member of Poshmark and every team member was something that we felt throughout that time and even till today. The second thing that attracted us to Naver was, we have a lot of leadership that is diverse. We have a lot of women leaders. And I feel in how the leadership has been created for Naver, and certainly, one of the things that is so impressive is, it shouldn't be, but it is that you've had now in Suyan, your second woman CEO, was really important to us because we felt that in a company, we want that approach. So those were things that were around the human side that was really powerful. The third thing was, in the very first presentation that Naver did to Poshmark, you were sharing vision for our products in a way that we had not thought about. And some of them inspired us to create new products that we'll talk about. So I thought that was really powerful that you and your team had taken the time to study our products, and one of them is sitting right here that I see, and it's amazing. And then as we understood your business and your focus on community and how you'd use community to create a unique thing, it became clear that this could be an amazing partnership that initially was turned out to be, we were thinking of investments, et cetera, and then ultimately it made sense to really partner at a deep level, and we are honored to be part of Naver today.
Thank you. Now, let's talk a little bit about the industry. So secondhand retail, especially when it comes to fashion, is something that Naver has been involved with for many years now. We have our own sneaker resale platform, Cream. We've also invested into C2C marketplaces like Wallapop in Spain, Vestiaire Collective in France, and Carousel in Singapore. Now, unfortunately, those folks at those companies were unable to join with us today. Now, how do you see the potential of secondhand commerce, especially fashion retail, and how important do you think secondhand fashion plays in the typical wardrobe in North America?
I think secondhand fashion and sort of this whole world of connecting the closets and consumer-to-consumer architecture is big today, but I think it's really going to be huge in the next decade, and as we look at the next 10 years, it's going to be massive. I think the size of it today, in so many ways, has exceeded much of the expectations we had when we started Poshmark. I would say that a typical American will have at least a few pieces of secondhand fashion, and many of them may have even half to three-fourths of their closet made up of secondhand fashion. And the younger you go, the more pieces you find. In fact, if you look at a teenager, many times when they think of going shopping, they're thinking of going shopping on thrift stores and physical thrift stores. Buying on Poshmark is not a big deal. It's just like something that you have to do as part of your shopping when you're looking at it. So it's really powerful in terms of how it has grown. I think the important thing when you think of the consumer is there's not a single person in this room who doesn't have a closet. You have a closet where you have clothes. You may not have a car, you may not have a house, so you may not be able to build an Uber, or you may not be able to build an Airbnb, but you have a closet and you have some clothes. And within that closet, you have some clothes you don't wear, which means you can be a Poshmark user and sell those clothes today. And I'm sure all of you are wearing clothes, so you're all shoppers of clothes. You can certainly buy some clothes today. When you combine these two things, it makes for a very universal product where hundreds of millions of people can come together and evolve in this direction. The other thing is the speed with which we are consuming clothes and using clothes is also increasing. Some of it is because we have access to clothes, and Korea is, of course, a very fashionable country, but some of it is also social media. We see someone wearing a cloth, you sort of post a picture, and suddenly that outfit you can't wear again. Somebody else has to use it. So that whole velocity is increasing. And then with phone, it really takes it to a whole new level. So when you put all these trends together, I feel the best for C2C commerce and fashion retail is yet to come. And as much as we've penetrated the wardrobes of closets in North America, when I think about the world, when I think about how much we have to do, there's so much more to do.
Now let's talk about international expansion. So Poshmark has already successfully built a presence in Canada and also has made inroads into the UK and Australia. How do you think about Korea, Japan, or other international markets? And do you think Poshmark can succeed here in Asia?
I absolutely think so. I think certainly I've seen that people in Asia wear clothes. I think I'm right about that. and I think they have excessive clothes. So I think we can help. I think the power of community and the social aspect is even more important when you look at markets you like Korea, like Japan, and even China, because shopping and commerce and online social has been there for a long time. When you think of a product like Webtoons, it's in a way, it's a social online community. And so for Poshmark, which marries community with shopping and selling, it's a powerful market that we can add tremendous value with simplicity and the kind of communities we can help scale in these countries.
Thank you. I'd like to talk about some of the ongoing collaborations between Naver and Poshmark. When we first met, we spoke about live shopping and how that was doing well in Korea, but relatively new to the United States. Did Naver's live shopping help inspire you to launch Posh Shows, and where do you see the potential for that in the US?
Yes, absolutely. We were talking about the fact that when Naver first came, they were presenting slides about a product that we have called Posh Parties, and we were talking about live shopping and Posh Parties coming together. Well, that inspired us to create a product which is Posh Shows. Posh Shows is a live shopping product. It has three things that make it very unique and different. One is any seller in Poshmark can start a live show once they get certified. So on a given day, we'll have thousands of different sellers starting these live shows. Some will have big audiences, but many of them may have audiences of 10 or 20 people, but they still actually sell products. Second, our entire infrastructure of shopping and shipping is available to these sellers, so they can actually take care of all of the things from authentication, making sure that the bag is real, to shipping, to payments, they're all built in. Third thing is that each show has a bidding format, so you can actually do an auction-like architecture, which is great for buying secondhand fashion, and it allows a lot of people to find a great price point. And the last thing, like any other Poshmark feature that we built, is a community-oriented architecture. So our shows are not just about the seller selling their own closet. In a typical show, the seller will also invite other sellers to come and help them sell their items in the show. And through technology, we can actually feature their items and bring it together. So it's a very unique format, and it's something that's really caught on in the last few months since we've taken it to full production.
The first product we actually worked on together during the first half of this year was Posh Lens, which was modeled off of Naver's Smart Lens. Now, how are users and sellers in the US reacting to this?
It's been a great reaction. We actually launched it fully to the consumer in July, and I was out there doing a press tour, and it's wonderful in the sense that you can take a quick photo, you can point your lens at anybody's jacket. In fact, we were with Su Yen when we pointed her jacket, and we could find those jackets available on Poshmark, not just the same jacket, but similar jackets. So it's both a tool for finding that item, but also similar items. When you think of Poshmark with over 150 million items being listed at a given point in time, sorting through it can be hard. So working with Naver, creating Posh Lens has been a very joyful ride, and it is a foundational technology which can allow us to create new things. What's been more interesting is to see our sellers using the tool and using that for pricing, for price discovery. And we believe the current version of Posh Lens that's created is very powerful, but there's a lot more work we are doing to take it to a whole new level and make it of great service to both the sellers and shoppers, and particularly also connecting to AI and ML as we look into the future.
The next project we're planning on working on together is around search, which is very core to us here at Naver. How do you think search will help enhance the Poshmark experience? And what do you think about the potential for newer methods of search, such as multimodal search?
So search is really a very important part of the Poshmark platform. 1 out of 2 conversions that happen on Poshmark happen through search. So as we partner with Naver on multimodal search, we're thinking of where the consumer is going, where the customer is going. Customer is not just looking for items through typing a few texts. They're certainly not just looking for items through image. They really want to be able to combine these things and build them together. And so when you think of expanding the customer experience, we feel multimodal search is a very powerful thing that we can jointly create and use and leverage the core platform that Naver has and offer to the consumer a way to get through these 150 million items and almost have a very personal experience where when you search, it's almost like the items are speaking to you. They're your style. They're very personal to you. So combining all of that is a very exciting journey that we are on in partnership with Naver.
Well, this brings us to my last question, which today the main theme is AI, and so I thought it's probably appropriate to end with AI. What do you think AI or generative AI has in store for Poshmark? And how do you think Naver and Poshmark together can successfully ride this next AI wave together?
I think AI is very exciting, and you know, through the years, through the day, you've been very inspired hearing how Naver is applying generative AI and AI to many different parts of the Naver platform. I think for Poshmark as a C2C marketplace, AI can be a game changer for our shoppers and our sellers. So if you think of our sellers, if I could just point my camera at these pair of pants and instantly create a catalog item from these pants, that can be really powerful. That's a generative AI in action. You flip it around, and if I can point the camera at my closet and slowly scan what I have, and suddenly every morning I get a little text saying, hey, Manish, your outfit is ready. And it takes the items from your closet, suggests maybe 1 or 2 items that are available in Poshmark, and boom, you've got your personal stylist in action. So when you start to think of generative AI, it can help the seller, it can help the shopper, and it can help the platform in both increasing the velocity of conversion, but also simplifying dramatically the life of a customer as they engage with not just fashion for sale, but fashion that already exists in their closet.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Manish, and thank you so much for coming all the way over here to present today with us. 저희 머니시님을 위해 다시 한번 뜨거운 박수를 부탁드리겠습니다.